And we are live. Hello, and welcome everybody to another virtual VueJS Athens Meetup. We are so excited to be here today, and this is a special event. It is a collaborative event with Hack the Box, which means that we have something special for you guys. Sergio, I'm one of the co-hosts today, along with Emma, Dimitris, Fotis, and Marios. And we have an amazing set of panelists from Hack the Box, Sotiria and Felipe. Sotiria is a community manager at Hack the Box, also known as Roadrunner. What's the story behind it?
So hello. Greetings from Hack the Box and myself from Soti, community manager. Everyone calls me a Roadrunner. The story behind is I was a player of Hack the Box. I studied, as I believe most of you, computer science, but I always, when I met cybersecurity, I fell immediately in love with it. And then Hack the Box came around, and we were funny, silly creating names with my CTF team. With my hacking team. And I was trying to pick something that no one else had. I should give a better thought now that I go back in the days, but because I am a marathon runner, I just use that because it would differentiate with the rest. And it's kind of good because it's kind of unique, but it has nothing to do with hacking. The only thing is that I run and I try and I will not stop till we make it. So, yeah.
Nice. Wonderful. So, and we have Felipe, also known as FBSA.
Hi.
Hello, Felipe. How are you? Felipe is a software engineer at Hack the Box.
Yeah. And my nickname doesn't have anything interesting, so they're just the first letters of my full name.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So Emma and Felipe will be our speakers today, and they will prepare. They prepared amazing talks for us. And at this point, let's see the program of our event today. First, we have Emma with Vue 3 VueJS baby steps. And then Sotiria will present the Hack the Box, sorry. And after that, Felipe will take the E-stage, with tips and tricks for large-scale applications. After all, there is a RAF in which Hack the Box is given a swag and annual subscriptions. Also, you can use the live chat to communicate with us and with other attendees. And remember to be respectful, to follow our code of conduct guidelines. And keep in mind that we are always looking for speakers, and so feel free to reach us if you are interested in giving a talk. It might be a lightning talk or a talk around JavaScript or front-end development. There is no exception. That being said, how are you guys? Tell me your news. How was your week?
Oof. For us, it's kind of very exciting. It's not that Felipe knows that I'm no liar. We have many exciting things when we actually really love what we do and who we are. And we have amazing things that we are going also to share. So I think that, so pretty excited actually. We are hyped.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Emma.
I'm also hyped. Both of talks seem very interesting, so I'm looking forward to them.
Same goes here.
And now that Sergio mentioned about the talks, just I want to make a quick reminder here about the channels we have, channels of communication for the VueJS Athens. You can, of course, subscribe to VueJS Athens on Slack, and also we use Twitter and Facebook to post news. And of course, we use meetup.com in order to announce our events. There, you can also come in contact with us in any channel of communication so that we can discuss if you're interested in giving some talk or anything else. So we will be very happy to connect with you. And yeah, just a quick reminder about our channels. That was it.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. So we had the JS World Conference on February. Did you attend it?
I did. I think you also, right?
Oh yeah, the whole week. It was a big experience. First of all, because it was a virtual event. So that was big.
What were your key takeaways? What did you learn?
Wow, many stuff, but there was one particular speaker who, wow, impressed me very much. I mean, it was a 12 years old front-end developer from Nigeria presenting a talk at 12 years old. I mean, can you imagine it? When I was 12 years old, I was playing Pokemon, I don't know, Legend, stuff like that. And she was speaking about a topic with imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And I was like astonished, like, wow, she's 12. I mean, come on, guys. So please write us in the comments, what did you like in the JS conference, which took place on February? Let us know, what did you like, what you didn't like, everything.
Funny like that. We have in the community and in the team very talented people. And actually, it's very funny because sometimes we wait for them to age enough in order to recruit them. And we have people, even in internships, that have got crazy certifications in hacking and cybersecurity that are 14 years old, 13 years old, and they find vulnerabilities and everything. And this is very inspiring, and I find that is training very good with the event because there is no limit, and I'm not saying this just as a prep, there's no limit until the one you put to yourself. So even if you live in not in the most privileged country or you do not have the most amazing resources, the internet is your world. You can surf and learn a lot of things. And this is how we have met a lot of people from Hack the Box, like Felipe, and this is how Hack the Box met me and everyone else. So it's pretty amazing.
Perfect.
So, what was her Twitter account or her LinkedIn, if you can share it with us? It sounds amazing.
Our Twitter account.
Her Twitter account, the girl you mentioned, the 12-year-old.
Okay. I will share it later because I don't have it right now.
Yes, or in the chat so the rest can see it. It's amazing.
Yeah, sure. So, please, did you like anything from the VueJS, not only VueJS, but the JS conference? Fotis?
I really liked Vite, the version 2 of Vite. I tested it locally and I thought it was broken because it was so fast, rebuilding so fast that I thought it was broken in the first place. And also I liked that in order to drop i11, I think they will backport features of Vue 3 to Vue 2, which is something very interesting, I think. Many people that want to migrate but are not able right now will be benefited from this, which is nice.
Yeah. They did a lot of announcements like Vue router is stable, Vuex is stable now for the new version of the Vue router and Vuex, which is amazing.
Well, as a user, I have a different opinion, but yeah, let's at that.
The shade.
As a user, nice.
Trying to migrate. I think it's time to start. So
yeah, it's time to start with the talks. So without further ado, I'm giving my screen and my attention to Emma.
Okay, just give me a moment to prepare
my
screen. So yeah, we're probably good.
Okay, so Emma,
So, yeah,
to your part, we are leaving.
great. So, hi from me again. This talk is about Vue.js baby steps. I'm going to talk about the initial approach of the Vue.js implementation by Vue and take a dive into the source code and see together how, and see together the first approach of the implementation, focusing on that scope only. So this is a topic I really like to present because it was really interesting to me when I had the chance to take a look into the repository, and I thought, why not share it with you? It's a very quick look over the initial implementation. So a few things about me. I'm Emma Zika. I'm a front developer at Agile Actors. I also work as an instructor in web technologies, and of course, as you may have noticed already, I'm a member of the team of the VueJS Athens Meetup, and I'm really glad today that I'm able to attend as a speaker. And I've been working as a front developer for the past 11 years, and I really enjoy working, especially in this field, especially with Vue.js, which is a library I came across with probably in 2016. Yeah, it was specifically the first library I came across with. I mean, a modern progressive library. And since then, I have been using it in my daily work, in daily basis. And before I start about this talk, I'd like to mention a few things about the source code. I would like to make a few points about when reading about the source code, what are the benefits of it. As I understand, probably, of course, you can take a look under the hook and see the implementation, how it is implemented. So it's a good step to better understand the things you've been probably using when having Vue.js in your project, how they are implemented. And you're probably looking into quality code and performance code, since this code probably gets into production and it's used by large applications, and also it's probably some, in case of the Vue.js, it's a popular option, so you know that it's a performant library. And of course, all of these help together to expand your knowledge, and especially what I find really interesting when taking a look into the source code is that you can get to see the architectural evolution of the product. So by following a library and seeing the source code and noticing the changes happening over some period of time that the project is active, you can notice the changes and see probably architectural decisions that are happening into the source code, and probably more information. And of course, all of these as well help you to master your craft, because we are you're taking a deeper look into JavaScript implementations in general and how frameworks get shaped. And lastly, what I would like to comment is that this is probably the first step you would take if you would like to contribute to an open source project, and like Vue.js, of course. And probably you would need to take a look into the source code in order to be able to get familiarized with it and see how things work, so that you can pick up probably any issue or contribute in the way you prefer to that project. So Vue.js started back in 2013. I mean, the development of it by Evan You, and he started implementing it back specifically in July 2013. And since Evan You, at that point of his life had been using mostly Angular, he thought, why not build something that could have the good stuff that he liked about Angular, and build something that it is really lightweight. So that was his initial intention. And he decided to name this project as Seed at first. And we now know it as Vue.js, but he thought to name it as Seed.js. And yeah, he started building that. So we will take a look on the first commit. Let's see a bit of the structure of the project at first. He made a really light implementation at first. He created only 3 JavaScript files, which were main.js, directives.js, and filters.js. And in the main.js file, it was a file that contained the main function under the name seed, which we know now as a Vue function, which gets instantiated when we add it in our project. And the rest 2 files are the files that implement respectively the implementation about the directives and the filters. So at first, we will take a look on each file separately, and I will go in detail about those files separately. Just let me say at this point that the directives that he implemented at first were just text, show, class, and each. Each was the directive that we now know as v4 for the loops. And he also implemented capitalize, uppercase, and delegate. Those were just the filters that he implemented at first. So let's take a deeper look into those files. At first, let's see the directives.js file. It's the one that includes only the implementation about the directives. So as we can see, there are only 4 at first: text, show, class, and on. So we now know them as vtext, vshow, and the class binding is a bit different now, but it would be as the class in the first implementation, the directive that he used. And also the v-on listener, as we know it now, was as the on back then. And this file includes on the implementation about the functions that get invoked when these directives are used in our HTML page. And you can see the code on the right side and the directive name as applied into the HTML page on the left side, and also the values used. So let's take a look also. Let me say here that, as you can see, the prefix is different. We use now the v prefix, but back then, since he named it as seed, the prefix was sd. Yeah. So let's take a look on the filters. And the filters.js file contained respectively the implementation of the filters. There were only 3 filters at first. And here's the implementation of the functions for those. So you can see that there is one filter that is not available, the delegate one, because the approach he took at first to implement the listener the directive we now use as v-on was a bit different. So I won't go into much detail about that, but just to mention here that the filter delegate was a filter applied on the sd-on directive. And yeah, let's take a look on the main function now. So I'm going to try to describe how this works and how this what happens when this function gets invoked. So as we know now, every Vue application starts by creating a new Vue instance by using the Vue function. So in the same manner, here we can see the seed function, which is the function that gets instantiated. And in this file, we can see some steps that takes. I won't go into much detail. I will just reference on a high level the things that it does. So as we know now, the Vue function gets instantiated by receiving a configuration object. And that object holds the properties that the API expects to have there. So we know that in order to target the Vue instance, we need to have some selector attached to the element in our HTML page. And we know that we can also declare data. So at the first implementation, Evan Vue implemented only those properties. So this OPTS argument you can see on the top of the code on the function holds those two properties. Specifically, they were named ID and scope. We now know them as EL and data. And they have the same purpose as well as it has now in the configuration object. So once they are getting received by this function, what it does is that it tries to find the element that has the selector, the ID selector, aka AL, as we know it now. And also it tries to find the elements that have any directives attached on them, used in the HTML page. So once all these elements are available, what it does, it processes them with some function that is the process node function, and does some stuff. I will go into detail about that later. And at the end, what it does is it holds internally in a scope property by reference the data that are added in the configuration object. So that, and this serves the purpose that those variables will be initialized, and they will have a getter and a setter function at some point. You will see that in some other slide later. So about the processing part, let's go and take a look in what this function does specifically. So each element will be processed, each node that holds a directive. And what will happen is that it will try for each element to hold the attributes that are available on that element, and make a list of objects of those attributes. So those attributes will end up in an array of objects and will have a key value pair of the name and the value, so that at some later point, they can be parsed by another function. And that function is the parse directive function, which will do some stuff and try to create something like a definition. We will see that in detail on the next slide. And once those directives, all those directives for all those elements get parsed, finally, it will try to bind the directive in case that is a directive that is prefixed with the SD letters. So that parsing will happen, and the binding, of course, will happen only for the directives that are supported by the library. And of course, they will skip the default attributes won't be processed and won't be changed. So about the directives, the process about parsing the directives is implemented in a function that is the parse directive. And that function does a lot of stuff, but most of them are just details of implementation. So I pointed out the parts that are the most important ones about the implementation of this function. And what this function does is that it tries to find the name of the directive. So this function receives the attribute that is used, the directive that is used on the element, and it will try to find the name of it. It will hold it in the variable, which is the variable we now see on the right screen, which is the dir name variable, and it will try from the directives export to resolve the function so that it can hold it on a def variable. And those two variables will be used later. We will see how these end up and where they are getting returned. And once those are resolved, it will try to parse the attribute value and find the expression used on the directive. So in case a key is added as a value of the directive, it will try to find that key. For example, if it was a message key, it will try to find that. And also it will try to parse the attribute value in order to find any filters attached used by the pipe symbol. And it will hold it in two more variables. So all these, along with a few more properties, they will construct an object, which is something like a definition object of the directive. And that object will hold the attribute, that key value pair we saw on the previous slide. It will hold the key, then the expression used as an attribute value inside the directive. It will hold the definition, which is actually the function as a result from the directive.js implementation. It will hold an array in the filters property, which are the filters that may have been used as a value on the directive. And it will also hold an argument. An argument would be something that could be passed in case it is supported by the directive or the filter. So in case it was a listener, the argument would be the click, for example. And that object is what, let's say it's a directive that holds all the information that is needed in order to invoke later on properly the updates that needs to be done on the DOM. And as a next step, it will try to, once the directive has been parsed and that object that holds all the information that is needed for the following implementation, it will try to bind its directive so that the scope of the data will get to be reactive based on the definition of that directive. So let's see in detail what the binding process does. The bind directive function is just a function that tries to hold the keys of the properties that are added in the data, and also hold the directives that are used in relation to those properties. And when things change, the implementation will know which elements will get updated and how the values, which functions will get invoked and how the values will get updated. So on this specific implementation, what it does is it tries to hold only the keys once, so that it won't do the same thing for the same key if that key, for example, is used in different kind of elements and in different directives. And then it will try to hold all the directives that are associated to that key, so that it will do the proper binding. And that way, it will probably update, it will probably change all the elements respectively when needed. And also, as last step, what makes the things, the data reactive is binding the accessors. And this happens through this function, which for all the properties that are available in the scope, in the data property, as we know it now in Vue.js, but back then when first implemented was named under the scope name, it will attach a getter and a setter function. And in the set function, since the binding has been prepared earlier, it will have all the directives attached to that binding, and it will try to loop them, apply any filters that are, as we saw, added in the definition, where there was a filters property holding an array of strings, which were just the filter names, and it will try to apply those filters, and that value, the changed one, in case there was some filter attached to it, will be passed to the update function of the directive. So that update function was a property in the definition object, which resolves to either the directive function that we saw in the directive.js file earlier, or in case it was the case it is a listener, the SD on directive, it will try to it will invoke the function that was attached as an update function for that directive. And by passing all those values, every time that key changes, any key changes, the set function gets invoked, and everything, all the changes get applied to the DOM. Because at the end, the function that was implemented in the directive.js file, as we saw, and in the filters.js file, will do some stuff on the DOM. I didn't go into detail on what those implementations were actually making, changing, but that is when things change into the DOM, once the setter gets invoked. So that is all about the reactive data. And also, just to make sure that we are following up with the code, because there were, I was going into multiple functions, looking and showing to you in the screen. This binding that we see right now, it's these functions, the getter and the setter, are those that are getting invoked due to this assignment by reference that was made in the main function. So when some assignment is made, the setter will be invoked. And when some value, some implementation inside our instance is trying to retrieve that value, that property, it will invoke the getter function. Yeah, so that was the initial approach of the implementation. Probably if you go into the repository, you will see that there are, I think there are the first 10 commits, that this state of the code you see now in the presentation reflects the repository. And then if you go and see the following commits, you will notice that Evan, you started to making a lot of refactoring. And I understand that most of the code you saw right now in the presentation maybe seems like it needs refactoring, so that's why he also did that. And but then the state of the code changes a lot. So this is just the initial approach, the rough approach, let's say. Yeah, so that was all. Thanks a lot. I hope you found that interesting. And yeah, if you have any question, please feel free to ask it.
Well done, Emma. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, thank you.
So basically, the idea behind Vue 2 is the same, I think. This proof of concept is still used in Vue 2, but it's ES6, not ES5, as we saw, right?
Yeah, that's right. The main idea is the same, yeah.
Nice, nice. If you have any questions, please post them in the live chat. May I ask you something, Emma?
Yeah, sure.
It's about more personal question. How did you benefit from Evan's code, initial code?
Yeah, that is a question that it's there are many answers to it. Basically, the need, I mean, the benefit mainly is seeing someone approach solving a problem, because I think that's the main benefit, that you can get to see how other people work and how they approach solving issues, because we usually do repetitive stuff and probably we're using tools that we are comfortable using, and probably we're using also implementations that we're comfortable using. And seeing other people's code is, I think, beneficial to broaden your way of thinking and how you resolve problems. And also you can see, I think Evan, you is more experienced than me, so probably I will have many things that I can get inspired from the implementation of it.
Perfect.
And one last thing that is also important is that you can get to see issues getting resolved that you may have not came across with. For example, if you haven't worked too much on performance, maybe seeing a library, how it changes, you can see the approaches someone takes to resolve issues, performance issues.
Nice, perfect. We have a question from the live chat. It's from Tristan. Tristan is asking, in your exploration of the source code, did you find any path that Evan did not follow that could have been interesting in 2021?
Yeah, any path that Evan...
I can take this. I think proxies that are used in Vue 3. Basically, it was rewritten in order to leverage the proxies functionality that's much easier to reason about and much more performant than the final properties. We already discussed it with Emma this yesterday.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay. We have one more question from Tristan, and then we are moving to the other section. Tristan is asking again, have you started Vue 3 exploration and found some hidden features not yet openly extended?
No, not yet. I just happened to take a quick look into the source code at the initial commits. So yeah, that would be very interesting. That's a good idea. I haven't taken a look to that yet. So not
Perfect.
yet.
Nice, wonderful. Thank you, Tristan. So at this point, we're going to move to Sotiria. Sotiria, the Roadrunner, will present to us Hack the Box. Sotiria, you have our attention and also our screen.
Awesome. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Amazing.
So thank you again, Emma, for your presentation. we're moving to Soteria now.
So, hello all, how are you? Greetings from Hack the Box, what's going on YouTube. This is Soti, aka Roadrunner, community manager of Hack the Box. Really nice to meet you. So if you didn't catch the first, as I said, yes, I'm the community manager. I'm in charge of the community, our users of Hack the Box. I am CTF coordinator. We will check what CTFs is in a few. And of course, hacker at heart, because I started my career as a penetration tester, actually as in computer science, like most of you. Then once I met cybersecurity, I completely fell in love with it, and I found my passion. And this is how I started in Hack the Box as a player, and then I started here. So who is Hack the Box? So if some of you doesn't know us, Hack the Box is a cybersecurity training platform. We're trying to teach hacking at the most fun and gamified way. We have over than 500K people all over the world. I didn't know if I spelled it correctly, but yeah, the numbers will speak. Yes, so 500K people. Yes, and we have many companies, we have many universities enrolled, and we host events and many things all over the world. We have, as of now, about, I think, 86 employees that are all over the world. Because our mission is to find top talent wherever it is, and we don't care if is in any place, as long as has internet to move remote and loves what he or she does, then can work for Hack the Box, because we pretty much love what we do, and you will see why. So Hack the Box, as I said, is the most gamified way to learn cybersecurity. We release new content every week, and it is completely free. Not all of it, of course, but we have 20 machines and more than 100 challenges for free that vary to any category, from web to crypto to point to reversing, and of course, machines that are in. We have vulnerabilities in the front, in the front end, in the back end, some vulnerabilities that come from the front end, from the back end. And of course, the community is very diverse. We don't have only InfoSec professionals, of course, because otherwise I don't believe there are so many in the world. As our audience, that is, as I told you, 500K, we have a lot of people that are developers like you, that are sysadmins, that are doing IT, that are in InfoSec in general, more in compliance. So yeah, everyone that is InfoSec curious, especially for developers, which is, I think, is very beneficial, because creating secure code is the best thing, because it saves resources and it actually makes you pretty savvy, is really good. And we have also many universities from all over the world, like MIT and Royal Holloway and things like that. I don't want to overwhelm you. We have Academy, which is amazing. If you do not know nothing about hacking, Hack the Box got you covered. We have guided learning for anything you wanted to know about cybersecurity. I am displaying now some very easy modules that are introduction to Nmap and how you can crack passwords and how you can hack WordPress and Linux fundamentals, and you start with that, and then you move to some difficult buffer overflows and many other things, and different concepts and difficult concepts also. So it's pretty good. It is completely guided. It has some exercises at the end, and of course you can hack it everything through your browser accessible VM that we have custom made. This is a ParrotOS, and everyone can access it and play it and crack passwords and hack VMs, and the possibilities are endless. We have also hacking battlegrounds. If you are a gamer like me, we have created actually a hacking game that teams team, and we have two modes, the Cyber Mayhem, that you have to at the same time hack and patch. So if your code has a vulnerability, you have to patch it so you do not lose points and the other team is attacking you. Server seats, and you are the king of the hill. You try to hack the machines first. And I also attached here a Valentine tournament because it went viral, because we understand that things might get lonely, and we give really big prizes, and we gave some Amazon gift cards or Tinder for anyone who wanted, because yes. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. I will leave the video in the comments in order to check out what Battlegrounds is and what our developers are creating, because one of the main comments we get from the community is that we have one of the most amazing platforms, and we really have to thank our backend and our frontend people that create amazing visuals. They are very inspired. Our UX team, our front-end team, they create things that make everyone go. And the new platform also, it's really amazing with elements that are moving. And also you create something that is good for the community, because our cause is to make hiking train accessible to everyone. And at the end of the day, you help with that. So it's pretty good to work for a good cause. We have CTF competition that run all over the world, and I told you what the CTF is. It is, and why I'm telling you this, because it is kind of related to it also. It is a competition that you have to hack as much as possible and collect points. And now we have the Cyber Apocalypse event. It is for you also. It is for beginners to intermediate people in cybersecurity. And of course, we have pretty good prizes. As you see, it's pretty much worth. It is in pounds because we count everything in pounds. But yes, it's 11,500 pounds, the total price. And we have swag, we have services, we have pretty much everything. It is next month, almost, exactly 1 month from now. It's called Cyber Apocalypse because we have a theme throughout the challenges. Aros Makelaris, that I see, he's in the comments also, he's the CTF Challenges Coordinator. And we have some pretty amazing challenges. And yeah, if you want to try it out what hacking is, also if you want to check out what Hack the Box is and why we are so fun girling about it, go check it out, the CTF, or just the platform at hackthebox.eu, or just the CTF. And I think that is all. If you're interested in working for Hack the Box, to check out Hack the Box, to broaden, to add more to your horizon, don't be shy to check it out or join our Discord. It's actually one of the biggest tech servers in the world, and we're very happy about it. And yeah, and if you want, I'll leave any comments there, and we will be happy to reply them. That's all from me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sodelia, for the presentation of the Hackbox. So, okay, let me remove the screen. Nice. So now we're moving to Felipe. Felipe is gonna do a presentation which its title is Tips and Tricks for Large-Scale Applications. He's a software engineer at Hack the Box, and he's from Brazil. So, Felipe, let me share your screen and remove ourselves. You have our attention.
Cool. So first things first, I'd like to thank you, Emma, for the great presentation, because a lot of stuff she said also adds to this presentation. You're learning how things work behind the scenes, help you a lot to understand better how things work and why they do what they do. And also, in addition to what Soteria presented to us, our entire platform, the Vue 2 platform, is built on top of Vue. So everything we do is with this wonderful framework. So yeah, that's it. Let's start. So again, hi everyone. My name is Felipe, and I'm from Brazil, even though we have this great picture in Athens, Greece. If you want to reach me out, go for any social media like LinkedIn, GitHub, Instagram, or Facebook. The name is the same for all of them. So yeah, let's go for some tips and tricks for large-scale applications, things we have learned from starting a small application and making it large, and figuring out the mistakes we have made and things we have to change. And let's go. So yeah, so we are sharing some concepts, tools, and some techniques that we have learned. So yeah. The tip number one is actually don't make assumptions without really testing what you are doing. And primarily, if you migrate from another framework. Before I joined Vue framework, I was playing with a lot of the other ones in the market. And it can be tricky if you bring a lot of stuff from those frameworks to Vue or vice versa. So be careful of what you're doing. So some things don't behave like you expect between frameworks. And the tip number two, which is kind of easy to do, but unfortunately sometimes we forget to do, or also because old Vue versions doesn't really teach us like the new ones. So we don't have this by default, which is lazy loading routes. And what it's basically do is going to separate our routes in chunks, and it's going to load the file only when we actually go to that route. And we can also add a webpack chunk name. So if for some reason help us to debug, everything is loading, so we can see on the network tab, so the chunk names, and identify when they are loading and why they're loading. And the next one is, pretty hard to do, which is lazy loading components. Yeah, and the same applies to the routing. So sometimes we add components, we import stuff that we want to use, and we forget to lazy load them. So it is pretty much like the same for the routing stuff. We just do one import as a arrow function, and we can pass a chunk name and also the component path. Another cool trick, which is kind of related to lazy loading stuff, because we are, on the other hand, just rendering components, is why did you render, which is sometimes we can do some wasted renderings. We just load stuff, or we do re-rendering in our components that shouldn't be happening, and we are aware of. So this library on the GitHub on the bottom is kind of a debugging mode for us to understand why and when our components are re-rendering. So it helps us to kind of understand where things are happening. Pretty cool trick, which comes from RFC from HTTP, which is a port from a React project, which is for Vue right now, which is called Swerve, how they pronounce this name, which is a thing related to HTTP requests that we keep the data while we go for the new data. So that's why we call it stale while revalidate. So what basically means when we go for a HTTP request, we load it from the API. The browser is going to kind of cache this data for us, and whenever we get back, the data will be there for us, while this tool is doing another fetch behind the scenes to update the data. So the user doesn't see the loading all the time when he goes from a component to another. We get the previous loaded data right away. And it brings a lot of other features, which is really cool, because basically what I said right now, we can pretty much do with the Vuex store. We can store something on the store that we get from the API, and when we move routes, we can just get things from the store again. But the Swerve brings more than that, so which is some cool features like it's transport and protocol agnostic data fetching. So it means it doesn't really care about your backend, so it can be any kind of backend. And we say they do like fast page navigation just because it feels more responsive for the users, because they don't see a lot of loading when we are just accessing previous loaded data. Another really cool trick is the revalidation on focus, which means sometimes the user go to a page, and let's say it's a huge list with a lot of data, but the data changes over time. And the user go to another website, and that tab will be hanging there for a while, maybe a few hours or a day. And when the user gets back to an application without the swerve, they have to actually refresh the application to get the new data if we are not using any kind of interval pooling or sockets. And just by adding the swerve, it is going to do this amazing trick, which is revalidation on focus. So when the user hits the tab on the browser, this swerve will identify this, the tab is focus mode, and will trigger the API again to reflect the data. So the user will see the previous loaded data, but the API will be hit again and bring up all the new data. So it's TypeScript ready. So if you want to go for it, it's a minimal API, so it's really simple to use. You can pretty much customize anything related to it. So you can add interval pooling, you can or disable revalidation on focus, or you can set the time for the pooling, or say for how many time you want this cache to be there. Also supports Vue 3, which is really cool. And pretty much important, it doesn't replace your current fetcher. So if you are using Fetch or Axios or anything else, it really doesn't replace this. It actually wraps up your fetcher to this new, let's say, function. We can see a pretty simple example right here. We basically import the use swerve, importing from them, and we have a kind of Vue tree style right here. But we set up, we get the data, we hit the /API/users, and here we have the fetch that we're going to get the URL, and then fetch and pass the data from the API to the user swerve that will do all the magic for us. So it's pretty cool and pretty easy to use. And here's a quick example on how it actually works. On the right side, we have a pretty simple Node API with JSON with some hack-the-box machines. And basically what I'm doing is commenting some lines and coming out others. And when we save the file, the API updates the JSON from the API, which means when we click on the window, the validation of focus happens and reload the data again. So it's really fast because we are actually running front end and back end on the same machine, so localhost. Of course, in a real world application, it wouldn't be like fast like this, but it's really great. And this is a simple example on how it works. So as I said before, we have a lot of more features from this Swerve project. And if you want to know more about it, oops. Okay. So here's the GitHub if you want to take a look. Okay, so another cool trick that we might forget, and I didn't even know about this before I was doing some research, is functional components that Vue provides. And the reason it's cool is because when we pass this magic keyword right here to our template, it means that this component isn't going to load a lot of things that Vue does for us behind the scenes, such as the reactivity. So if for some reason we want to load a component that gets data from props or slots, things like this, and we don't really have to care about reactivity inside this component, we can just add this magic keyword to our template, which is going to, let's say, remove a lot of Vue code that is going to control our components, looking for data changes and stuff like that. So it basically means that we have a component more, let's say, performance. So it's not heavy loading a lot of stuff that we don't actually need. And yeah, it's a stateless component, so you can't really have any data property right there, like it's our computed property or methods. It's basically made for passing props or slots. So yeah. Okay, so another pretty cool stuff is playing with a virtual scroller or this GitHub project right there. What it basically does is we have, again, a huge list of data. And if we load this at once, sometimes we can get our components to, a slow loading, or the view just, stay stuck for a while until the data is loading. And what this project basically do is it's going to load the data while you are scrolling. So basically the box around this means that when we reach a certain level of the scrolling, the project will identify that we are getting to up or down to load more data. So it's pretty cool for a huge list of data and pretty simple to use as well. So as I said, it renders only the visible items on your list. So, and also reuse some components and DOM elements to make it more efficient and performance as possible. So if you have a huge list, go for it and have fun. Another cool trick that sometimes we just forget as well, even when we are new to Vue, like me, I don't have much experience with Vue, maybe 1 year and a half. So I came from another framework, and we start just doing things, and it doesn't really play with the performance of the application in a manner, but actually plays with how performant you get while coding your stuff, because you can use the helpers to make it simple to call your actions, mutations, getters on your components, and you can also separate them as modules, so simple to use, and you don't get lost with a file with a bunch of Vuex stuff. And I think that we can also do some lazy loading for our Vuex stuff, which is pretty cool. I didn't have any tests on that, so I'll take a look. And if some of you know something, feel free to share on the chat. I'll appreciate it. Another code trick as a beginner as well, or on Vue, or even if you're not a beginner, sometimes we just go for a if statement with a vif, or sometimes we go with a vshow without really thinking about why we're doing the vif or vshow. So what is the difference between them, actually, what they do when they're running or rendering our components? Basically, the vif condition is going to destroy and recreate or piece of code inside our component when they are toggled, which means that they are cheap to load on the first load, because we are actually not loading them if our if condition is evaluated to false. So it's cool. So you have, let's say you have a huge data to load, but it's under a if condition, which is false. So when your component loads, it doesn't really matter. So because you are not displaying this, so your component doesn't really care about creating this block of code. On the other hand, the vshow basically do a display none to hide and show or piece of code. So it's more expensive to load if you have huge data. So because it's really, when you render your component, you are rendering all the data, even if it's not showing, because it's basically doing the display none. So be careful when you go for a vif or vshow. But we can do another pretty cool trick, which is basically using both of them at the same time. So maybe we can get some cool stuff from it. It depends on what we are trying to do, but here's a quick example. So instead of using vif or vshow, we can use both by doing this pretty simple trick right here. We create a data property called Dogo, and we have two other properties right here, the render to false and the visible to true. So, and on the template side, we have a vif on top of this div wrapper, which has the Dogo rendered, which is false. So our component, when loading this, doesn't really load this. And our vshow is set to true. So because it's not really being rendered, so it doesn't matter if it starts as true. And we have a button right here, which goes for a toggle function, which is going to do the quick magic right here. So we basically check for, is it rendered? So is it on the component? If it's not, we go for the set the render to true, which is going to show our component. And if it's already rendered, we just don't mess anymore with the render property. We just mess with the visual property, which is the visible. So we just toggle this element all the time, and we don't recreate and destroy this component when we toggle it. So we just do on the first time loading. We just create, and then we play with visual. So we could have, let's say we have a lot of data right here. Instead of having a image, we could have just another div with a lot of things that we have to toggle, which is heavy, and we don't want to load this on the first component load. And here's a quick demo on this. So using both, we have, as you can see, we have the button right here, and our div doesn't exist on the first loading. So let's wait again. So it's empty. And when we click, we have this div, which has the image tag inside. And we toggle again, we just do this display none. So we don't destroy and create this component, this piece of code again. So depending on what you're trying to do, it can bring a lot of performance for your application. And here's another cool trick as well, which is the Vue once. And what it does is when you place Vue once on a div or element or anything, it basically means that you run this property data only once when your component renders. So basically we have a input with a Vue module on message. We have a p tag listening to message, and also another p tag doing the same thing, but with Vue once. And on the data property, we have a message, and we can see on the first load, we have the message right here. When we type to change the message, only the first p tag actually changes, and the second one doesn't because it's on Vue once. So it's also a cool trick. If you, let's say, you also play with a huge list on a v-for directive that you don't really want to re-render all the time when you're doing other stuff with this data. So you can avoid this by using this pretty cool directive. Another, I think it's the most important tip actually. So to keep learning and doing experiments, because we never know the answer to everything. So a lot of things we do, it doesn't really care about it's Vue, React, Angular, or anything, or it's plain JavaScript. Doing experiments, we can understand on how things work behind the scenes and what we can do to make our applications better. So as the presentation from Emma, which is a good example on diving deep into someone else's code and learning from it, can bring a lot of value to you and also to what you do with this knowledge to your future applications. And yeah, guys, it's short, so just a cool tricks that makes some difference with Vue stuff. And thank you. So if you want to reach me out on any social media, there's right here, LinkedIn, GitHub, Instagram, or Facebook. And don't forget, everything is built on top of Vue, so we are hiring. So if you want to join our amazing team, feel free to check our website and go to our career section. And that's it.
Perfect. Amazing talk. Amazing talk. I really enjoyed it. Wow.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah, it was really great presentation. So let's move to the Q&A session. Do you have any questions about the talk of Felipe?
I really enjoyed it. I want to watch it again, of course. I have some tabs open already. Yeah, have you experienced something with Next or server-side rendering in general? Have you gone down that path?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, I would add this slide, but I just forgot. It's pretty cool. Actually, we are thinking about adding Nux to some projects we're doing at Hack the Box. Because currently your application is SPA, so it's not under Next. But yeah, it's also pretty good.
Nice. We have a question from Tristan. Tristan, you're pretty active. I like it. So, here's a question. With the advent of static site generator and Jamstack, do you see, sorry, a shift to build big projects with Next as they also give you client-side page regeneration, sorry, possibilities?
Yeah, the new, let's say, Jamstack world is actually being really good. And actually, uh, um, on the React world, we have the Next.js, which brings a really cool feature for static site generation, but they can be dynamic, which is something that I really would like to see on Next, because especially me, I would say, I'm not sure about all of you, but there are some stuff that I really prefer doing on a SAP application. But of course, Next brings up a lot of also cool features, and also, but at the bad side is that we have to set up a lot of things on our server side. So uh, we bring up a lot of responsibility to our infrastructure team to care about how the Next dependencies are needed to make this work. And by doing SAP applications, less work for them to care about. Even when you talk about large applications, and um, a lot of when it's running on more than one server and stuff like this. So, but definitely, we're going to see a lot of things come up from Next, and even if it brings up the static site generation, but with dynamic stuff that Next does. Try to get a link to show you guys what I mean.
I have seen that Next is pretty fast and also benefits SEO. So SEO. So
Yeah, exactly. This is just great. So guys, I posted on the private channel because I can't send on the comment section. So if you guys could share this link, and so guys,
I will.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's we're talking about Next and not Next, but I would love to see this on Next to follow with it if we had this cool feature, which is the incremental static generation. So it brings a lot of value to a static generated application. So I hope Next does this in the future.
Nice. We have another one more question from Michaelaris. How would someone go down about tracking down performance pitfalls in Vue.js?
Yeah. Well, we can basically use Chrome to help us with the performance tab. We can basically run the performance tab to trying to debug what is happening when we render a component. But we can also use the Vue dev tools to also see a lot of stuff, because the Vue dev tool brings up a lot of let's say performance tab that we can see what is happening under our components, and also we can see what is happening with our store and stuff like that. So maybe from mixing those two, the Chrome performance tab and also the Vue dev tools, we can track down performance stuff.
Nice. So thank you so much for your presentation again, Felipe. We really enjoyed it. And it was nice to have you here. So, it's raffle time. Let's start with the raffle. Soteria and Fotis, would you like to start the whole process? I mean, Foti, we need your magic tricks in order to get the lucky persons. So, would you like Soteria to remind us the gifts and
Of course. The first gift is a swag card to our awesome swag shop that has amazing hoodies and soon a thermos and t-shirts and everything that you see us wear and desk mats, and pretty much it is like the hiker's cool place to shop. So we have a £50 swag card for there, and also we have and the other, it is an annual subscription to our Hack the Box platform that you can start, learn, and explore anything. And so if we can start the raffle, if you can pick for these 2 lucky winners, and it would be amazing.
there are 2 or 3?
I have shared my screen, I think. Sergio.
Yeah. So,
this is our GitHub page. We have the material from the previous meetups here if you want to go through them. And we have added a small JavaScript snippet here because last time we used Excel, which we are not a big fan of. So I hope there are no bugs here. Let me. We are raffling now the swag.
Yes, why not?
Stefanos Papadogiannis, it's the first one.
Well done, Stefanos.
And the second one is the annual subscription, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's Michail Apostolou. This is an old colleague. He will make good use of it, I think.
Awesome. So if possible, you will send us the winners' details, their emails, and we will get back to them with their awesome prizes. And it was very nice to be here with you today.
Same goes here. We really enjoyed the meetup today. It was a very interesting meetup. We had Felipe, we had Emma. Very nice talks. Really enjoyed them. Tristan is asking something. Are there at least attending right now? Yeah. I hope so, yeah. I hope so. The name Stefanos and Mikhail, right? Yeah. So if you are attending, we will come in touch with you, and we will route the whole process. Now, again, big thanks to everyone, to Soteria, to Igor for making it happen.
Thank you, Igor.
Process. Until next time, guys, stay safe. It's important. Okay, stay safe, and let's meet up to the next virtual meetup, and we'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.